What was his dialogue? What stood out to you guys about his dialogue in that sales call?
It was like kind of like gloomy, like towards the end when he was like talking about like this is my home, whatever, but like before it was like more friendly. So like that was like building the relationship, and then I feel like that ending part was more so like the transforming part.
Okay, so there was a transformation throughout the entire sales call. What else?
Yeah, I would say it started in pretty like unprofessional place with just a bunch of jokes and like, looking for an awesome blossom with extra awesome. And then, he turned it like by the end, he was using more like terms that were catered to his prospect.
All right. The book's going to talk a lot about a relationship strategy, a product strategy, a customer strategy, and a presentation strategy, right? Chapter 1 is devoted to developing a personal sales philosophy, if you will. Did you guys see that in that sales call? Did you see all 4 of these steps that the book talks about from chapter 1 in that sales call with Michael Scott? Now I'll ask you guys, what is the most important, in your opinion, no right or wrong answer, in the sales process according to the book? What do you think is the most important?
Probably the relationship strategy.
Okay, we got 1 mark for relationship. Who agrees with Lucas that the relationship strategy is the most important? Hi, bring them up. All right, who thinks that the product strategy is most important? Okay, Soccer, we got 1. Okay, yeah, let's debate it.
I just think that if you don't have a good product and a good way to talk about it, then everything else goes out the window and no one's going to buy anything from you if you don't have something worth buying.
You want to debate that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a salesperson, you have a product to sell, there's always competitors in the space. And if you can't make a personal connection and create like a friendship or almost like a business relationship in that sense, they're just going to flock over to the competitor and use that product instead.
Yes, I agree with you. I also think that when you have the competition like that, there comes a point where you're not going to be able to talk your way into competition if they genuinely are selling a different product or a better product that might fit your customers' needs.
Nick?
But if you have like that relationship with them, then can't you start to cater and change your product strategy based off your relationship?
That depends on more what you're selling. I don't know how much you're able to change what you are selling. So I guess depending on the industry, that would be a valid point for sure.
Tony, you want to get in on this?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good example because he never once talked about what was different about their paper. Both it seemed like paper and paper to him, but he won the relationship strategy, so that was why he got the business.
For this example, they've covered the product strategy already. They're selling identical products. Paper is paper. But the thing is, sure, once you have that product strategy, I'd agree that the relationship is the next most important because that's how you push it through. But I would argue that even though they didn't talk about the product itself.
Do you guys agree that paper is paper? Your hand shot up.
Yeah, well, mine's like not about, it's not like about the paper versus paper, but I think when you're a salesperson, like my aunt does sales and she says like something that makes her really good at it is because she's super passionate about what she's selling. And so like if you have the confidence and you're passionate about what you're selling, then like you can create anything. Like if you think about something that you're super passionate about, like even if someone's like a better like volleyball player or someone's like better at something, like I'm super passionate about it. So like I could debate it forever. Like politics is something someone's super passionate about and they can debate back and forth, like, you know, so even if you're not as good, like you have to have the confidence. And so like, even though like your product might not be as good, like you're coming into a market and you're trying to be the best. And like, it's not necessarily the salesperson's job to like make the product better. You're trying to make your product seem the best. And so like, yeah.
All right, so we got a ton of people that really thought and was really digging this relationship strategy. Healthy debate going on between product. Anybody think about the customer? Anybody high on a customer strategy? Why?
Well, what exactly,
how does the relationship strategy, doesn't the relationship strategy kind of fit in with catering towards the customer?
Tell me, does it?
I think it does because I think you cater your relationship strategy based on what you read from your customers. So then they kind of feed.
But aren't all customers different? Aren't all relationships different? Don't you have to have a different customer strategy for each customer?
Yeah.
Okay? Whose hand was up over here?
Yeah, when you first asked me that question, I was debating between customer relationship and how I interpret is that like the customer strategy is more business orientated, business context, that kind of stuff. Whereas the relationship strategy does go a little bit deeper and can go like a little bit personal, hobbies, kids, that kind of stuff. So customer strategy is very good for, I guess, beginning to build that client relationship, and then the relationship strategy really takes over and like you get that loyal long-term client that way.
Okay,
I would say that I wouldn't rank customer strategy as the most important, just because when going into a sale, like it should be more of like a two-way dialogue and focusing on like the relationship aspect and more so just on that one person and trying to please them. You're kind of trying to develop the relationship and the feelings between the two people.
all right, last one. Go for it.
I think like what you mentioned before about if they don't like you, they're not gonna buy the product, or like they might buy the product but not from you, so the relationship does matter.
Okay, well, relationships matter all the time. Lastly, presentation strategy. Anybody high on that one? Yes, and then yes.
Yeah, so presentation, so the people make like first impressions just based on like how something is presented, especially how you look and like how your company looks. And speaking of relationship, like going against that, you can have like a good relationship, but their business strategy or like whatever could not be good. So I'm pretty sure like everyone has like that one friend that we're all like really close with, but you wouldn't hire them as a employee. So I'm just thinking like presentation is like the first thing you see. That's what people want to see, and they want to like invest in.
Okay, and yes.
I think the presentation strategy would kind of put emphasis on being passionate and being genuine, because if he had gone in and was like, oh, I'm gonna tell this guy some jokes and then kind of get to the punch, it wouldn't have really sold. He kind of let it get to the customer, bringing it back to the point of the whole meeting, and he was genuine and like wanting to get to know this
But
person.
doesn't that go to speak to what we talked about from an emotional intelligence and kind of reading the room and a body behavior and all that like in that moment, from his presentation strategy, maybe that was part of it. Maybe he knew at that moment that he couldn't push it right away. And that's okay in sales. People that have started businesses, it's okay to talk and connect before you go into your pitch. It's okay to do that. That's part of sales, is talking to people on a one-on-one basis. I guarantee when you walk in that door, that customer knows why you're there. They know why you're there. Okay? Lastly, we talked a little bit last week about the definition of sales. How did that fit into our definition of sales? Selective actions leading to extraordinary storytelling. What did Michael Scott do to effectively look at this from selective actions leading to extraordinary storytelling? Did he embody that in that moment? I get a couple of yeses, yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like the selective actions were kind of like, they came first when they were sitting at the table, like he purposely told those jokes and made the customer laugh and all that stuff. And then he kind of capped it off at the end of the night by telling that story about himself and getting really personal with him about where he lives, how he's from the area. So the selective actions do lead to the extraordinary stories thing.
Another selective action was when he wanted to order that awesome, whatever it was. He called the waiter over by her first name instead of just like putting his hand up or waiting for her to come by.
Made it personal.
Amazing. Yeah, he's like a local in the area. He knows the people, he knows the business.
All right, perfect. Good discussion, good debate. I mean, we could have done that all night, but we do have something that we have to do. So I want you guys to clear these desks really quickly. And what I'd like to do is, starting with you. All right, what we're gonna do is this. I want you to count off by sixes, and here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna go, you're gonna start at 1. We're gonna go this way, all the way down the first row. Then we're gonna go here, all the way over to the second row. And then we're gonna go up there, all the way down, third row. Got it? We're going.
1, 2,
3,
4,
5, 6, 1.
4, 5,
6,
3,
4.
5, 6, 3, 4, 6, 4, 5, 6.
All right, one's over here. Two's over here. Three's over here. Fours will take you right here. Five's over here and six is over here. All right, let's go. Go ahead.
You were, you started playing with it.
Oh, sorry about that. No, just go right to those spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tell me when you guys are there. I got your email, that's why I'm asking. All right, let's go. Where are my ones? Kind of get in a group, ones, get close to each other, introduce each other. All right, introduce yourselves, if you don't know each other.
What's up?
Twos are over here. This is threes. Fours, get closer, please. Why don't you guys come around right over here? Get a little closer, introduce, fives are here, get closer, sixes are up over here. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Before Jeremy Fun zooms in as your guest tonight, we're gonna build an airplane. Now, there are rules with how we build this airplane, okay? I need a volunteer from each group to come up here real quick. Come up here real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody else in that team can touch that. Your job is to make sure nobody touches it. So put that right there. Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, put it right there. Make sure nobody touches this until I tell you.
Can I open it?
Nope. You can just put it right in front of you. You cannot touch it. Thank you. Thank you.
My room.
Guys, here's the deal. You cannot touch the contents of this bag. You cannot touch the contents of this bag. Put it down in front of you with observation. I want you guys to take the next 5 minutes and develop how you would use the contents in that bag to build an airplane. Cannot touch the bag. You can only look at it with your eyes. Okay, 5 minutes. What would you use in there to build an airplane?
Wait, are we allowed to like move the bag around?
You can only look at it.
Airplane. So we have like one.
Yeah, and build the body off.
Oh, we
of
can
it.
have.
Yeah.
I buy it. I feel like these are pretty good. Like flipping it. Yeah.
We're gonna need to use like the ladder
Not bad. It looks
to build the rest of it.
There's a bunch of like red and yellow ones.
Yeah. Like more transparent. Let's go be like.
These things go on little.
Yeah. I don't, what's this thing down here?
You have 3 minutes left.
It's like.
3 minutes left.
Yeah.
That might go.
Yeah, those are like.
I'd say when we open it, we just separate.
Yeah, so the great ones are going to be divided.
Don't touch the bag yet.
Oh, wait, there's an eye.
You know, like.
We are like.
Yeah.
I think we have to separate big pieces from little
Yes, there's gonna be change like this.
There's
like, right?
Yeah. And then there's like, these pieces could be like, I don't know, if like.
But now you should be developing a plan as far as what you guys are gonna do to build there.
Sorry, the first colors. Separate.
And then
Just like,
change,
yeah, they're good looking.
and at least just start with.
And then like random ones, like.
We want like a.
I don't know what else. we could
You're
do
must
besides
use
that.
this like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be like a.
There's wire or light.
Do you think?
Oh, here's, oh, what's this? Oh, it's like a little like.
There's a good amount of stuff. Like I can see.
It's like.
What if we ran?
Be like a color patch.
Either.
I think we will very well.
There could be like, I feel like there's like a plane in there with other random pieces. No, definitely not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You guys good? You guys good? You guys good? All right, here's what I want you guys to do.
Maybe like you two, like.
We all listening? You got 4 minutes to build. All right, time's on the clock. You can open them up. You got 4 minutes. Stop talking. No.
These are little bit block. Good.
Like,
Good.
or by stage, too, like what we want. I think it's all about-
There's just one thing you so real. These actually work.
That's definitely not-
I apologize. My time is off. I was looking at- I'm sorry, you have 15 minutes to go. I apologize. I'm sorry. You have to be telling me. I'm sorry.
We have to use all the pieces.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just that with the scale.
Oh, nice.
Here, wait, what's that?
Make this the base, right?
This is not on an airplane.
It has something like this.
Alright, so that's.
This can be for the front.
Like an arch.
Window. I feel like right behind. I feel like this is for like a. Is there like a two separate?
Can you close that?
What are these circles? Oh, it connects.
Look at this thing.
Oh, you
It's like a. This.
We need something, this.
But he didn't say that. Alright.
Well, yeah. In the plane.
Yeah.
And then it makes it.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, wait. That's separate. Right?
Yeah, back in.
What's that one thing you got
Do we have to use all the pieces? Or? Let's do like seats. What about these individual? Like block? Yeah, there's like that. They're different colors.
Yeah, I'll take it over.
Yeah, I said there's technically.
Gotta be there.
Yeah.
I think we should build a platform.
It's looking pretty good.
I think we should build a long sleeve now.
Yeah, some things you need.
Yeah.
Will this help with that?
And then I think from the platform, we can.
Or this?
Wait, so we said we have to use all.
I mean, I don't think there's any. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
This be a person. Add this to the.
What about?
Just to attach.
The one has never been divided. That we've never been disconnected. But the
Are you able to attach this?
Can we just stack these like one?
We need that front end.
No clue.
Or something like.
Oh, no.
I want every group to shoot one group at a time. I want that to go up here. Don't touch anything. Leave it exactly where it is. One, go up there. Everybody shift. One, two, right. Everyone. What? Supposed to three different two. Three, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they got.
Everybody shift. Let's go.
That is pretty.
More things. Yeah. Make the back leg.
That's like this one.
It goes not in my. I actually got, I couldn't over it, like, oh. I think. Yeah.
It's throwing out ideas here. No, I like it. That has to be making. Yeah, it's like. I just don't know how to achieve it.
Yeah.
It's like a. Yeah, I've got. Now. I see. Yeah, that way, I. This is the. It's safe to say that. Making progress.
Yeah.
Oh, man, sorry.
Everybody stop what you're doing. I'm not about to ruin image of the style that you used to. Here's what I want you to do. I want you guys to go back to your original build. All right, go back to your original build.
Wow.
Ruined it.
All right, so.
Oh, this thing's so. We can still make changes like. Right.
Yay.
I mean, yeah.
So what are they
Wait, so this is the back. Yeah, I. Wouldn't go this way. Yeah.
This.
You got it.
There is a prize on the line for the best.
Like.
Here's a propeller.
That's the back.
Here.
Front and back. Gotta be at the gas. Money.
You know, that is fun.
That one was bad. Let's just not break that, that's, you know, there's. Oh, whoa. Oh, like hit this thing on. Wait, that one doesn't. That's actually. Yeah, that would just.
10 seconds.
Let's talk about it.
Stop your build. Everybody, stop your build. No more building. All right? All right, everybody have a seat at your station. No more touching. All right? All right, have a seat. That one's gonna fly.
What?
All right, so it's group one.
It's just us.
Why don't you guys have somebody stand up and show the class you're playing? Listen up.
I bring up your pride.
All right, what do you say? Group one? No. Group two? Yeah. Oh. Very nice. Group three.
Yo, extend them. Yeah, they got multi-function, you even got a tail gunner. It's multi-function.
It goes in the water.
In the water,
Yeah.
submarine, underwater too.
Tell you a story. I like that. Very good. All right. Group four.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It's got some wheels on it.
All right.
It's like-
Okay.
It's a little brittle, but hey, we'll keep it right there. Very good job. Group five. All right. Very nice. Group five. Very nice. Group six. All right. So show of hands. Who thinks group one has the best plane? Okay, group two. Who has the best plane? Group three? Group five? Group six? Group five is gonna be the winner here. Hold on. So listen. So why did we do this exercise? Let's think through this from a sales perspective. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about what happened when you guys went to that table. And you guys were just looking at your Legos. What was the conversation like at the table?
Almost trying to sell your idea and what you had in mind to the other group members.
Okay, we're 20, everybody above 20 years old here? Pretty close, right? Okay, so 20-year-olds are building Legos and they're selling their idea as far as how to build an airplane with Legos, right? What else? Yeah,
You didn't really see the whole picture, but you had to just piece together what you could like deduce.
okay. Communication too. You had to tell everybody what kind of your idea was. Maximus, yes.
We got a big surprise when we got to the Lego pieces, because before we had actually time to plan and do an approach to our actual building. But then we went to the other table and the pieces were nothing like what we had, so we had to think about a different plane. It's
All right, so what happened in that moment when I said, okay, you guys gotta switch to this table? What then was the conversation like? What was it? Huh? It's not.
I said sabotage.
All right, sabotage, okay.
Kind of had to try and gauge what the other group's like idea was and how we could add to it.
All right, so you took the other groups, you were like, all right, how do we add to what we got going on right here? What else?
We're also able to see how they utilize different pieces and how you can kind of incorporate that into your own.
Okay, what else? How did you handle adversity?
We went over, we very quickly like identified, okay, these are the wings. I think they were trying to put a wheel here, like this is what they were doing and the similarities as to kind of what we had thought in our original plan. And then we took it and kind of improvised to make it be more like ours.
So night one, I said that approach, dialogue, close. You guys are gonna run into unexpected turbulence along the way, correct? So when I said, all right, get back, go over to this table right there, is that unexpected turbulence? That you're gonna have to rethink about strategies in a second. All right, now how am I gonna build this? What else happened in that moment?
Our original model is like taken apart pretty much completely. So as soon as we got back to the table and realized that and knew that we liked what we had come up with in the beginning, we all just got together to redo it and back together.
All right, what else?
Some parts of what the other group did, we kept, and then we also brought it back to what we originally had to.
All right. Give me 1 second here. Get him in the phone. What lessons did you learn? Ultimately, what lessons did you learn out of this? Yeah.
Focusing on what we could control
with the pieces that we had instead of what we couldn't control because we didn't have enough material to do that part. So just focusing on the part that we could do perfectly instead of the other one.
All right, focusing on what you can control, yeah.
Getting imaginative and creative with the different pieces,
What
just
was the first part of that?
imaginative, like
Okay.
being imaginative to kind of work with what you have and try to build everything.
Okay, what else? What lessons did you learn? Joe, what lessons did you learn out of this? Think about it from a sales perspective. Think about it from a communication perspective, a matrix collaboration perspective, selling your idea, trying to figure out how to build, trying to go to somebody else's station. What lessons can you unwind here?
I think it's important to be able to kind of handle adversity, like you said. There's a lot of different things that are going to be, thrown at you. So kind of being able to take in everybody else's ideas and kind of build forward through communication.
Okay.
I was gonna say like learning from other groups' ideas, like seeing what they made and like trying to see if you have the same parts to put into yours.
Okay. Couple more.
Your first plan is usually not to be the one that's most successful for your final plan, so you have to just learn how to adapt quickly.
Okay.
And make the best of the situation.
All right. Yes, sir.
The first 5 minutes when you did not let us touch the bag and told us to visualize how we were going to build the plane were very important because it synchronized all of the group and it made us think in a similar plan instead of at the moment we were going to build a plane, everyone could have a different idea of how to build a plane, but viewing and talking about how we would build that plane kind of walked us through the same path.
Okay, a lot of you guys are gonna go out that door and you're gonna graduate with distinction, I hope, right? And you, the marketers, raise your hand one more time, right? You're gonna have to sell ideas to guys like me. You're gonna be faced with adversity. Sales professionals, you're gonna be faced with adversity every single day. This guy is gonna be able to talk about that at length, about how he's dealt with adversity, about how he's built a company, about he's been one of the best salespeople to come out of it. Okay, that's what happens in sales all the time. That's what happens in business. That's what happens in life. It can be as simple as showing you guys through this exercise with Legos that how you deal with adversity matters. How you sell an idea matters. The words that you use to sell that idea matters. Okay, how you come together as a cohesive team matters. Those are all life lessons that you'll use well beyond this classroom that hopefully you should retain in this exercise. Adversity, collaboration, communication, that's what sales is all about, relationships. I heard somebody over here say, well, what's your name? Right, I heard people over here asking about who this person is. Up there, I heard the same thing. That's coming together as a team, as a unit, right? You don't just play at Bentley. I'm sure you know every single player on that team. You guys have come together. You bonded somehow. Right? And these exercises are a way for the class to bond together. I think about that for the next 14 weeks. Do me a favor. So what group won? Did we say this group was the winner? What's that? Group 5 won? Okay, so what I need from you guys is somebody email me all of your names, and you guys are the winners of Dunkin' Donuts gift cards. We'll get them to you next week, okay? I need a picture. Don't ruin this yet. We're gonna have a picture of all of us with this build, so don't ruin it. Just put the ancillary pieces in the back. You guys can deconstruct yours, put yours in the bag, stick it up there, and select those Legos up there for me so I can put them back in the bag. As we transition.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
All right, buddy, I got you.
All right,
Make sure you
cool.
put those back in the bag, guys. Bring them up, find your seats. And now it's time for you guys to learn from this gentleman right here. Cheers.
We'll leave it front.
Good build.
Like right here.
Run your A game.
Really? Wow. You did your homework. You would like this back? You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
No.
Good, how are you?
Softball season.
Stick around for a couple of seconds. This group here. Thank you. I got everybody's Lego build, yes? All right, so I want to welcome Jeremy Funk to the class. I think that he does a better job introducing himself. But again, be mindful of the folks that come into our class, they're here for you. Not about their presentation to you. I ask all these guys to prepare nothing, right? It's not on them to prepare, it's on you guys to ask them questions about how they have manipulated sales and been successful. There's nobody better, in my opinion, I'll say this a lot, than Jeremy. And he can go through how we know each other and whatnot. But again, welcome to the class, Jeremy. It's always good to see you. I don't know which way I should turn here, but we'll start it this way. If you have a question for Jeremy, please come up here so he can see you. Maybe stand here is a good thing.
Yep.
So he can see you, and we'll just start it off that way. All right, so whoever has a question, raise your hand and just come right down here, and we'll do it in a sequential order. You want to start us off?
Okay.
Oh, everyone's good.
Jeremy, can you hear me, see me? Good?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, hey Jeremy, I'm Andrew. I'm a senior here at Bentley. I appreciate you coming into class here. Quick question for you. What's something that you feel has made yourself successful over the years? You personally, a trait about you.
That's a good one to start off with. Resilience, I think. So I guess just a little bit about me, and then I'll get into answering that question. So my name's Jeremy Funk. Grew up in Plymouth, New Hampshire, a couple hours north of you guys. Went to Brandeis, so just across town there in Waltham. Zev Young and I, Professor Young, went to a summer camp together, Camp Ramon, New England. I was a couple years younger than him, kind of always looked up to him and still do in some ways. I was a history and American studies major at Brandeis and moved to Boulder, Colorado, sight unseen about 20 years ago, and I'm still here. My entire career, which is about 20 years at this point, I'm 43 years old, has been in sales. And what they don't tell you in sales when you're about to get into it is that you're going to lose, and you're going to lose a lot. And it's really, really painful. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about how you respond and how resilient you are when you do lose. So a quick story. I'm actually headed to a conference tomorrow, one of my big conferences of the year in Houston, Texas. And I'm really looking forward to this, just as I was in 2012 when I went to the same conference. In 2012, I was at a company called Energy Navigator. I was in sales. I was the lead salesperson on a business deal with a company called Ultra Petroleum. They're called Pure West Energy today. The company still exists in the oil and gas space. I was selling them a product. I thought that I nailed it. I thought these guys were certainly going to go with my solution. We had the best pitch. We had the best product. We had the best team. Something happened, and I found out on the flight down there that we'd lost the business deal. That means that I lost money. I lost some stature within the organization that I was working for. And I was about to go to a conference that was my biggest conference of the year to generate leads and pipeline, and still needed to put on a good face. I didn't want to leave my hotel room. You know, it was really, really difficult. So what did I do? I said, you know what, before I go out there and just kind of, mope all around this conference and shoot myself in the foot for all these new opportunities I could get, I sought out a couple of people that I used to work for and looked up to in sales and talked to them and explained how I was feeling really down about losing this deal to Ultra Petroleum, that they made the wrong choice and that I don't really lose deals and that this was incredibly painful. And really just sought advice. What do I do? How do I bounce back, and how do I bounce back quickly? And they kind of all had the same message that, look, you're going to lose deals. It's going to happen. But it's truly about how you bounce back. If you didn't lose business deals, you'd walk on water, and none of us do that. So it's really about, can you pick yourself up from your bootstraps today and separate yourselves from your competition today. Win today, have a productive day, and then go out there and win tomorrow and deal with the fact that you're disappointed about this deal in a couple of days, which I did. Deconstruct why you lost that business deal and try not to repeat those things. Continue to make deposits and figure out how you can win. And I was able to do that successfully and picked up a number of great opportunities and had one of the best years of my career in 2012. So long-winded answer, but truthfully, sales is about resilience. It's about how you respond. And I couldn't give that advice any more clearly. You will lose. It's going to stink. How do you bounce back? What did you learn? And how do you get better the next time?
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy.
Awesome.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Miles Hadlock. The one question I have for you in your 20-year career is, what's one piece of advice that you didn't have but wanted to have when you first entered your line of work in sales?
Wow. I'm gonna take the time machine back there. You know, I think it really is, you're going to have to put in the steps. There's no fast track in sales. You're going to have to prove yourself. And I really I thought I could come in and work really hard and be able to excel and go right to the next position and get promoted. And the truth is, it's a rocky road. It doesn't always work that way. You're going to get passed over for promotions. You're going to lose business deals, as I said. Sales is truly one of the most amazing, probably the most amazing profession in the world, because you can chart your own course. But people who have been in the game, like I have and like Professor Young has, know that there's sort of a process to it, right? You don't just come in and be the best sales guy in the world because you go in there and you vomit all the information about the product that you know. You listen, you learn, you build relationships, right? So there is a process to it. And the hardest thing that I had to deal with was being patient. I wanted everything to happen really, really fast. And truth be told, there's just a process to it. There's a learning curve. There's books that you need to read. There's people that you need to tap on. You need to find mentors, right? You need to find the right companies to work at. You need to get appropriate sales training and realize that there's a lot that you don't know, especially early on in your career. I think a mistake that I made early on was that I just wanted to learn and digest everything really fast. And really what I needed to do was sit back, listen, ask questions, and learn the best I could and try to model myself in a way that was authentic to me. Don't try to be somebody else. When you go in there and do sales, be yourself. And that will be found at some organization where you are the right person for the right job. It's not going to be everywhere. But what you don't want to try to be is somebody who's slimy, somebody who always comes in and they're trying to sell you everything they can. The best salespeople listen, they ask questions, and they understand that there's a process that it takes. And frankly, 20 years into my career, I'm still learning every single day. Know that you don't know that much and that you know even less early on in your career, and continue to educate yourself as you move forward in sales.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
Hello, I'm Sabrina. I would love to hear what you would consider distinguishing between a good sales rep and an excellent sales rep. Like, what do you think are some qualities? I know you mentioned some earlier, but if you could give us more insight on what you think makes a salesman excellent rather than good.
Yeah, great question. I think that there are some themes that you see with the best of the best salespeople and just good or average people. The best salespeople that are out there truly care about being authentic in all of their dealings and building relationships. That's something that Professor Young is going to talk to you about a lot. But what I've been able to do and cultivate in my career is I now have a massive Rolodex of people that I can reach out to. And they know that I'm reaching out ultimately to do business with them, but I care about them as people. I think some good salespeople only care about hitting their number, making a certain amount of money, and going off and taking their vacations. I care about those things too, but I also genuinely care about these people as individuals, and people are smart. They will see right through you if they know that you're just there and you're doing the mental math around how much commission you're going to make when you make the sale with them. People want to do business with people that they like and trust, and there's no more true moniker in sales. The best salespeople are likable, they're authentic, they're honest, and they care about creating value for their customer. Good salespeople care about selling the product, hitting their number, and moving on. Excellent salespeople care about the value that they can create for the customer and the relationship that can be built after that. That's the difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Hi, my name is Natalie Tome. And my question for you is, I read that in your bio, while you were at Seven Lakes, you had to drive up sales like a crazy amount.
Yeah.
So I was wondering how you, like after hearing that information, how you broke it up and how you approached that.
Yeah, no, that's a fun one. So it was about 10 years ago when I started working at Seven Lakes, which was a company that was primarily led by all Indian dudes. Most of them were first generation and had pretty thick accents, selling into the oil and gas industry, which is candidly mostly a bunch of old, rich white dudes, right? So there was a major disconnect from the start. And I realized, okay, I need to be the one that bridges the gap between the technology, right? And then the personal connection that's created with the client. So I really sort of broke it down. It's very easy to, and this is a term that I like to use, to try to boil the ocean. So I looked at the total addressable market and said, man, I've got all these different companies and they all have different needs. What is the most common theme among these, right? It's people that used certain types of software. It's people that needed certain types of data, typically financial data or operational data that could run their business more smoothly. And try to start asking questions and figure out what is it that these companies care about. So instead of just going out there and assuming that I knew what I needed to sell, I went out and asked questions and I gained as much feedback as I possibly could and started to gain some real traction and momentum as things moved. And because I'm a natural relationship builder and care passionately about that, people wanted to see me succeed. They wanted to see the company do well. They wanted to be references. They wanted to share the stories that they had and talk about why they did business with the company that I was working for and the value that they saw from those products. So really trying to understand the client, their needs, their pains, the commonalities that we could find and go piece by piece. If you go in and you try to sell everything and just be this gigantic resource, it doesn't work from a small company standpoint. You have to get a few quick wins and take those wins one at a time. I'll also say this. I traveled a lot. Like I was on an airplane almost every week. And I was sort of like a ghost. My competition would say, everywhere that we go, Jeremy's like a step ahead of us. He was just here and then he disappears, right? I don't understand it, but he just beat us by one day. So understanding the timing of the business deal, what it takes to get done, and creating those thorough and authentic business relationships to make it happen. It was a lot of hard work. I had a really great team, but was able to grow one of the fastest privately held companies in the United States over the course of about 3 years. I went to some really fancy dinners, helped raise a bunch of money from investors, and had great success, both financially and a lot of satisfaction personally from what we were able to build over there. So yeah, it was trying to distill down what the most important themes were and not try to be all things to all people out of the gate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie.
So Jeremy, I'm Joe.
Hey, Joe.
So I'm really curious as to why you decided to go towards the petroleum industry and what some of your highlights are from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it was a little bit of luck. I think I was fortunate to get into the oil and gas industry. I knew coming out of college, 2002, 2003, that I wanted to get into sales. That much I knew. And I knew that I wanted to get into technology sales. So I worked at a number of different companies, mostly startups, small companies that I could help grow here in the Boulder, Colorado area, and had built a fairly sizable network at that point, including with recruiters. And this recruiter got a sense that this is a guy who can sell products and do business with anybody in any industry. And they came across this role selling accounting software to oil and gas companies and said, you know what, even though this guy doesn't have the experience, he's the type of guy I want to put in that room because I know that he's going to make us and my company and my recruiting firm look good. So in late 2007, they put me in that room. I aced the interview. I got the job and started in early January of 2008 and realized that this was a space that I really liked. You know, I was fortunate that in 2008, there was a little bit of a boom in the oil and gas market. I'm not sure what you know about the petroleum space, but new types of ways to extract oil and gas from the earth started to come about. Hydraulic fracturing, shale drilling, unconventional drilling here and throughout the United States was becoming very prevalent, and companies could find ways to create massive amount of oil and gas in ways that they couldn't before. That created a lot of new complexities that I realized needed technology to solve those complexities. So I was just really fortunate. I'm not going to lie, but you know, there was luck involved in getting into the oil and gas space, but hard work is what got me there. And then continuing to work hard in the same space for the last 15 years has allowed me to start my own company and start to build other technology companies. And look, you know, I got a flight tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. to Houston. Like, it's not over. My game is just starting, right? So constantly showing up, constantly being in the room, and having the same mindset that I had when I was 23 years old, when I didn't really know much. Now I have subject matter expertise. Now I'm viewed as an expert, as an influencer, and people come to me and they trust me and they care about my opinion. But that was earned. That wasn't given. So yes, there's some luck, right? But what you do with the opportunity is up to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie. You talked about how sales is kind of like a learning curve and that it can be like a rocky road. So the question I had for you is if you remember a specific like moment in time or like a specific sales call, if you can remember, where it kind of just clicked for you and you knew that sales was what you wanted to do and kind of found your voice.
You know, I wish I could say that there was a moment. I feel like it was almost like a compilation of moments, but I just really, really enjoyed being in the room, especially when I was younger and early in my career and didn't say a lot. Seeing how executives dealt with salespeople and how they responded to certain salespeople, and realizing once I gain the knowledge and the skills, I can do that, and being patient in that process. You know, specifically, I guess if I were to point to one single event, I think when I was in 2008, working with a man named Chris Dinkler, he's now the chief revenue officer for a company called Inveris, which does about $650 million in revenue per year. He's a big time player in a pretty big industry. And seeing the way that he dealt with executives, seeing how he could be creative, seeing as how he cared about solving business challenges and creating value and a vision for his potential buyers was something that I really admired. And I think it was in some of the moments in watching him in the room that I said, okay, I've got a long way to go. I need to pick this guy's brain. And instead of feeling intimidated, like, how am I going to get there? How can I do this? Really just being authentic and being myself and saying, dude, that was really impressive. I want to get to where you are. How do I do that? And you talk like that to a senior salesperson, the best ones will sit down with you and map it all out. I have a process. This is how I approach that meeting. This is how I built that slide deck. There are things that I didn't know. So I'm like an eagle. I fly in and I see what's going on and I bring in the right people. I bring in the fellow birds with me and let them make their plays as needed. So a lot of it in watching him was realizing there was a lot that he didn't know, right? So when you saw him speak, he was only speaking on things that he knew and where he could create value. So every time he spoke, it made a lot of sense and people responded really well to that. So it was sort of seeing like, okay, I see how he does this. He doesn't need to know everything. In fact, it's more important that he knows what he doesn't know and finds people to complement him in those particular areas and let them leverage their strengths. Sales is a team approach. I was an athlete in high school. I was an athlete in college. I still play sports. You know, I think that there's a lot of natural correlations there where it's, you know, about the resilience, like I said before, and how you bounce back, but also understanding like what your strengths are, what you're good at. If you're not a 3-point shooter, like don't stand out there and shoot 3-pointers, right? But pass it to the guy who can shoot 3-pointers and maybe you'll be in a good spot, right? So figuring out sort of how to distribute and how to be the one that takes a leadership role without being the smartest one in the room every time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After this one, after this one. Thank you.
Hi, Jeremy. My name's Austin. Obviously you can notice the massive microphone in front of your face.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn bio mentions that you're an influencer.
Yeah.
Is that podcast? How do you reach out to people and how do you think that benefits you in sales now?
Yeah, good question. So I decided to put the term influencer out there to actually have double meaning. One is, yes, from a social media standpoint, I do have a podcast. My podcast is called What the Funk. And what I do is focus on introducing the personalities within the energy and energy technology industries and letting those people speak and bringing them to the masses. It does a couple of things. It allows me to build a relationship with them, allows me to ask questions, which I really enjoy doing, and understanding what makes really strong senior leaders tick. But I'm also an influencer within my company, Funk Futures. What we do is we work with early stage up and coming energy technology companies and bring them into rooms where we can help fast track business opportunities for them and effectively influence some of the technology and strategic initiatives that large publicly traded and privately held oil and gas companies will make. So it's twofold, right? You think about an influencer today, maybe you think about, Gary Vee or Paris Hilton or somebody like that, right? That is just doing it on social media. And I think that I actually influence in a couple different ways. But yeah, it was a bold move, I think, on my part. It started a podcast called Tripping Over the Barrel during COVID, because I realized that one of the main ways that I was able to procure business and build relationships had completely gone away, since anything in person had completely disappeared. So how could I continue to grow my brand, get to market, stay relevant? And a podcast was a great way to do that while I was at home so much. But then I realized that I really liked it and I can use it as a sales tool. So in a couple of different ways. People know who I am when I walk in the room. And then people also view you as having subject matter expertise, which I have gained from all of the questions that I've asked over time. So yeah, I mean, truly being an influencer to me is helping influence and create value in business deals, and then also creating a social media profile that people will respect and understand.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Jeremy, Lucas here. Just wanted to ask you, at what point in your career after successfully, being a sales rep in the energy tech industry, when you realized it was time to, build your own brand, make your own company, and start working for equity instead of a W-2? And secondly, with that, what's like the biggest challenge that you faced while doing that?
Oof. I was talking to somebody about this earlier today that just launched their own company. So when I had the idea and knew that I needed to launch my own thing, it was a lot different from when I actually did it. So, it takes a lot to go out on your own. And I sort of realized in the middle of 2017 and had a really great mentor, still do, Abe Shasha, who's also a business partner of mine. And he said, people buy from you, right? They're not buying from the company that pays you a W-2. They're buying because they like you. And I had to really get that into my head and said, maybe I still need to work at other companies. But I sort of let that message get to me. Like, if I have a product and the product that I'm selling doesn't add value, or they already have discovered a way to solve that pain, they're not going to buy it. But they will say, man, I wish you had something that I could buy from you because I trust you. And I know you're not going to sell me something that I don't need. Right. So hearing that message enough got me to the point where in 2021, so almost 3.5 years later, I decided to launch Funk Futures. And it was a big risk. I'm married, I've got 3 kids. My wife is a social worker, so I'm the breadwinner. There's never really going to feel like a right time, but I felt like at that point, what I had to do was start my own business. There was just no way that I was going to continue to be happy being a W-2 and working for somebody else. Now, as far as challenges, man, I mean, I'm dealing with these every day. Like it's a lot different when you're on that paycheck routine and you get paid on the 15th and the 31st or the 1st and 15th every month, to then submitting invoices and getting paid late. Like here we are on the 30th and a bunch of my customers are overdue on payment right now, right? So dealing with some of the stresses of the financial component, trying to make everybody happy, right? I have 7 different customers right now that we do fractional sales for. And to us, every one of them is one of 7. But to them, we are their most important resource because we are the lifeblood of their company that helps them create business opportunities and revenue, right? So ensuring that they feel that they're all important and not just another customer is a very big deal. So the challenges are different. When I go on vacation, I don't ever really shut off. Like, I'm not sure if I totally did that when I was a W-2, just sort of the way that I work and sort of having an obsessive mentality, but you are able to disconnect. Like when I went on my honeymoon, I totally disconnected. I didn't check emails. When I went with my wife to Cancun in December, I got up every morning at 6 a.m. and still did 2 or 3 hours of work before going to the pool. Right. And that's just something that, you know, it makes me tick. It's not something that makes me mad. I enjoy doing it, but there are just different challenges that you're faced with in running a business, filing your own taxes, having to manage people, right? And knowing that you're directly responsible for their compensation and not part of just a cog in the machine. Like it's your machine, and how hard you drive it is how successful the business is going to be. So there's different challenges all the time. You can't really have days where you're just not motivated and you can just, you know, cash it in. You got to bring it every day. And sometimes that's on the weekends too, but I like that. And if that's your mindset and your mentality, then possibly entrepreneurship is for you.
Well, thanks, Jeremy, and congratulations.
Thanks, man.
How's it going, Jeremy? I'm Dave. I was wondering kind of, when you switch to sales consulting, what's one way you manage all those relationships and, especially when it's not going as planned?
Yeah, no, and this is something I deal with today. I had to deal with an unhappy customer today. I think early on, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I'm still learning, you know, on a day-to-day basis, how to manage and work in an entrepreneurial environment where I am doing consulting for customers. I think it was really important for me early on to get the same feedback from my customers that I did when I was in my sales career. Like, what will make you happy, right? What does success look like to you? And just asking really simple questions. These are not things that you need a lot of experience to ask or try to obtain answers to. So understanding like what would help. And the feedback I started to get was 2 things. I think we need like a weekly checkpoint, right? We need like a weekly meeting, because maybe you guys are going out there and you're crushing it, but we're just hearing things secondhand and we don't see any money coming in. So we think you're not being successful. Whereas to us, we're like, we're crushing it for these guys, right? So providing a weekly touch point to ensure that people know that A, we're working, and that B, we're being productive. And then also from a reporting standpoint, like I would just send an invoice on the 1st or the 31st of every month and be like, here you go. And I started seeing people come back like, that's great, but you're not an employee. So like, what did you get done last month? So now reporting is a very big priority for us. I work with my team. We cultivate like a pretty clean report. These are the people we reached out to. These are the conversations. These are the business deals in flight. These are the sales that we've had successfully. So there's just different levels of accountability that I have to have now than I did when I was working as a W-2. So really, I think those were the 2 areas, is that the open lines of communication with the weekly touch point, and then very clean reporting so that there's transparency into all of your actions. And I think that's been huge for the evolution of our business and put us in a position where we've been able to scale. I think without those things, it would just be a constant turnover and a lot of questions about how we're doing and what value we're creating, because we need to set ourselves apart from just being another employee on their team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy. So my name's Andrew. I understand you've done some international business in the past and worked with a variety of different people. So my question is, have you ever encountered any cultural barriers during work, and how have you engaged with and overcome those barriers?
Yeah, great question, and big time. So working with, like, let's just say Canadians, for example. Canadians are great, right? They're very sweet, right? But to do business with, it can be challenging because oftentimes they're passive aggressive, right? So understanding how to nip that in the bud and not get to the point where things do become passive aggressive in terms of dialogue. Working with Southeast Asians or Indians. What I've noticed is in the Indian culture, they're trained to not say no. Saying no is a sign of weakness. Well, in the American culture, we're very direct, right? If there's something that you can't do, you say, no, I can't do that, right? But working with some of these Indian guys who are brilliant, you know, MIT, MBAs, they still wouldn't say no, right? So understanding, like, even if they say yes, are they really saying yes? Because they might say yes and then just not complete the task, which is actually worse for us, right? We need to hear a firm no so that we can move on and say, okay, can't do that. We move on to the next task. So even expressing and communicating, it seems like this, right? And that makes me feel like that. So it's very important for our customers that we communicate in a way where we say no, right? We can't just commit to everything and not complete some things, because that's going to look worse than if we just come in and actually say, no, we can't do that, right? I mean, I could go on and on with lots of these examples, but that's the truth is there are cultural differences. And, you know, possibly, especially with how young most of you are, maybe it's even reading about books, Googling, you know, cultural differences between Chinese or Japanese and American folks, like differences between Canadian and American. These are things that I've learned over time, but I wish I had a little bit more knowledge about going into it. But very important once you start to see some of these trends to say, okay, I've seen this before, and not attack somebody for that, but just to challenge, maybe say, it seems to me that when you say yes, but you say it in a way that you're not sure, that's actually your way of saying no. So I just want to make you aware that in this business dealing, if we're not going to be able to deliver it, I can be the one to deliver the message. They feel a lot better, right? Because then they don't have to look like the one that's being weak. I can do that. And to me, that's not even weakness. It's just honesty and transparency. So yeah, really good question. Lots of differences in many different cultures. And you come across those in business, and really try to be empathetic, right? Think about yourself from their position. That's one of the things that somebody asked this earlier too. Like, what are the excellent salespeople? Excellent salespeople are empathetic. They can see things from other people's point of view. And if you're able to do that, you'll have a lot more success than if you just forecast and broadcast your own thoughts and project your own thoughts onto how other people should think, because they just won't think the same way. You have to think from their position, from their shoes. What are their challenges? What are their needs? What matters to them? Because what matters to me as the sales guy might not matter to them at all. But if I can figure out what matters to them, what makes them tick, what will solve their business challenges, and sell to that, we're going to do a lot more business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, hey Jeremy, this is Patrick, and my question is a little bit about the industries, so might get a little bit lengthy. So, you know, just as you work at the tech industry, and I'm gonna be doing investment back in B2B SaaS, so I kind of know, like, you know, how the business should be working, and also the business models. And, you know, the question is that now the business model has changed dramatically ever since the last couple of decades, and with more companies focusing on a B2B SaaS, where, you know, a SaaS business model, there has been a hard time transitioning, because transition for salespeople. And if you look at now, people are just, you know, companies are more into like partnerships and saying that product-led growth. So there has been a lot of sales actually going through, and actually companies going through very difficult times trying to transit into these kind of business models. And salespeople suddenly just become, for most companies, become a burden for them to keep up. Mm-hmm. And so in this case scenario, just wondering, you know, as from your perspective, where do you think that salespeople are going to be placed in the future in this industry, and how can they coexist with this technology?
Yeah, so like, let's talk real quick about like Chat GPT, right? Or artificial intelligence, because that's kind of a buzz topic right now. I don't believe that artificial intelligence will replace salespeople, but I do think that it will become challenging for salespeople who don't leverage tools that can make them more efficient, right? I think that the better salespeople will adapt and will not just be stuck in the ways that have worked for them over the past 20 some odd years. And I'm not immune to that. Like, if I'm not creating value for the organization I work for or for the customers that I do business with, I'm obsolete. And I really want to avoid becoming obsolete. So staying in tune with trends, right? Understanding what questions you're being asked from your customers. How are you leveraging artificial intelligence? How are you becoming more efficient? And I think that in a lot of ways, sales has changed from, it doesn't really matter what I know or don't know, I'm a great sales guy. Yeah, I don't think so. I think that salespeople actually need to be experts in the product that they're dealing with, because people will see that on the other side and gain a lot more respect for you and say, you know what, like he's a sales guy, but he knows his stuff. And that's a great compliment to have, because then you're very dangerous, right? I think adaptation is very important for salespeople. I think there are certain markets, certain industries that will become more and more obsolete, but the best salespeople will always have a role in those companies. And that's really going to be how they adapt to and leverage technologies that exist to replicate their success and make them more efficient. So yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and probably one that we could have over coffee, but truth be told, like we're seeing it now a little bit too with some of these large tech companies having layoffs. If you're not consistently creating or showing value, the companies will figure that out and they'll move on from you, right? Nobody's irreplaceable. Professor Young knows this as well. You constantly have to be learning, evolving, training, understanding technology, and most importantly, connecting and creating value for your customers. The day that you stop doing that is the day you become obsolete, especially in sales.
Thank you for the answer, Jerry.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Gigi. I wanted to ask a more personal question. So I wanted to know about the relationship between your professional life and your personal life, because as you were saying before, like losing, you gotta be able to know how to lose, and losing must be really hard and affect your personal life and the confidence that you have in yourself and how do you see yourself. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you deal with that when these hard times arrive?
Oh man, I wish I could say that I separate the two, but it's really, really hard. I mean, I think that that's part of the process that you learn, and the people that care so much about their job will let it creep into their personal life as well. I think it's really important to realize that you're not just your job. You're a lot more than that. You're a daughter, you're a son, you're a husband, you know, you're a dog lover, whatever it is. And that those things should not be affected by what happens within the workplace. But truth be told, like that's not how it's always gone for me. There are things that do affect me, and I'm human. I'm not a robot. So I think it's actually taking time when you do lose to mourn those losses, to realize that it's almost like a death in some ways. And before you're able to just move on, you have to understand and process why those things happened, right? So I do take the time to think about these things. I try not to push them to the back burner. I try to learn from every experience, whether it's a win and especially if it's a loss, and not try to compartmentalize. The idea of work-life balance has really shifted very early on in my career. I mean, this was really before smartphones even. Like when I went home at 4:30, I was done. I didn't even have a laptop when I first started. I just had a desktop, right? And now there's a million different ways for people to get a hold of me. Then I'm constantly on different social media sites. I can get text messages, so it's hard. So you now have more of a responsibility to create that balance for yourself, right? And find something else outside of work that makes you tick. And that's something that I'm still striving for too. You know, maybe it's watching the Celtics, right? Maybe it's hitting some golf balls. Maybe it's going for a walk or going to the gym or what, you know, watching Netflix. But it is really important to have that balance. Otherwise, work, and especially in sales, will start to consume you fully. So the best advice I could give is always remember that you're more than just your job, and that frankly, like you probably have a lot more loyalty to the company that you work for than they do to you. So you think about like, man, I don't know, like, should I entertain this new job that wants to give me a 20% pay raise? I love my company so much. But does your company love you the same way, or the next downturn that you have, the next poor quarter you have, are they just going to get rid of you? Right? So understanding like the level of loyalty in business is very skewed. The employer does not have the same level of loyalty to the employer. right? So I think I've been able to separate the two and realize at the end of the day, if this doesn't work out for me here, it'll work out somewhere else. And that allows me to at least create some of that distance from work and the rest of my life, because I could lose my job, but I'm not going to lose my family over the job. Thanks, Gigi.
Hi, Jeremy. My name's Bridget. Thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it and being able to hear your stories and experiences. My question for you would be, as a senior here at Bentley, you know, and a lot of us are, we're moving into the job application process if we don't have one lined up already. Some advice from you on what you think is important when we're deciding on companies, and also how we kind of leverage ourselves and sell ourselves through that application process.
Yeah, and that's a question I've been asked before, and I think that the answer is evolving. I would say find something that you really enjoy doing, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find your dream job out of the gate. The odds are you're probably not. Like you're going to have to go through the ropes and find yourself like just about everybody else does in their career. But are there some things that you can have that you really, really enjoy? Like, would you rather work in an office? Do you want to be in a city, or do you want to be in the suburbs working from home, right? Do you want to be in technology? Do you want to be in healthcare, right? What are some things that are of interest to you? Or maybe it's not, you know, not being in sales or marketing. Maybe it's going a different route. Maybe it's teaching. But you need to be able to at least enjoy what you do. Otherwise, your life is going to become pretty miserable. And that starts at a very, very early point in your career. Like, it's not going to be glamorous out of the gate, but finding something that you enjoy doing is really important. Now, how to make yourself more marketable, how to sell yourself to potential employers, it's really not about you. It's about what are their needs in their hiring process, what are they looking for, and catering your answers and educating yourself on that company will go a lot further than trying to present yourself in a certain way to that organization, right? So if it's a big company and they have, you know, 10Ks because they're filing publicly, study those. Same way that you study for, you know, a math test or an econ test today. Like, study that information, learn about the company, understand where they operate, how they do business, right? Learn about their senior executives, where they went to school. What are some common areas that you can connect about that are authentic and very real and not fake, right? So really understanding the company that you want to work for will do more for you than trying to present yourself as something that you think you should be. It's really about them, right? If you work for them, you're there to create value. You're there to serve them as your potential customer, as your potential employer. So before going into any possible interview, doing as much research as possible about the company, and understanding, is this a fit? Is this something you want to do? And if the answer to that is yes, take as much time as you possibly can to learn and educate yourself about the company, all the ins and outs of their business, and ask questions about those things. That always impresses me as somebody who hires people. I can tell very quickly someone that just came in and wants to get hired because they're such a great, compelling person, or somebody who's there and they're serious because they did their research, they did their homework, they had a lot of questions ready to ask. That impresses me.
Yeah, that's a really different perspective than I think of like what we usually hear. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Funky, we got one or two left.
All right.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for being here again. I'm Pat. My question for you as an industry expert is, like, could you speak a little bit more to like the importance of understanding your industry and the competitive environment that you're playing in as a salesperson?
Oh man, it just can't be understated, right? You, generally speaking, if you are a salesperson, you're given a sales engineer who's a technical resource that is probably guiding the potential client or customer through a product demonstration, through some sort of pitch. And you have a choice. You can sit through that session and be on your phone and check your fantasy team, or you can learn about what they're doing and the questions they're being asked. And when that person shows up sick, can you do 80% of what they do? That's really important, right? That will gain a lot of respect for you amongst the executives at these other companies and be seen as one of the good sales guys, He's not just here selling me something. He understands his product. He listens. He asks questions. He wants to diagnose what my pain is. I've been very fortunate as a salesperson, and I've said this a lot. Like, I've been in probably the boardrooms of maybe 300 different oil and gas companies throughout the world. And they all have things that are common amongst them, but they all feel like they're unique and different. So it's really important for me not to go in and they start talking and saying, oh yeah, that's what you guys all say. You all think you're different, but you're really the same. That's not going to get me very far, right? What matters to them is their company, their pain, their balance sheet, and why you're in the room, right? What value can you create for them at the company where they're at right now? And if they feel like you're selling to them, some of these people will leave the company and show up somewhere else. They're not going to call you because they think you're just some sales guy. They're going to call you because they're like, this guy knows his stuff. He's an expert. I remember when he came into this company here and he listened and he eventually found us the right product. We did business with him. That's who I want to do business with, right? So I think I've been fortunate in that I've been able to be in so many different rooms and understand where the similarities are, where the differences are, and treating them each as unique individuals with their own individual challenges and making sure that you sort of mirror that back to them. So yeah, I've learned a lot, especially being in the boardroom, but even just doing my podcast, right? Podcasting makes you a better listener by default. So I know I've been in here and I've been doing most of the talking, but a lot of it is the questions that I ask and what I can remember, right? People really care if you remember things about them, what college they went to, what sports team they root for, what kind of food that they like, maybe their kids, right? What are they into? And if you can bring some of those questions back up, people will be very impressed. And that's something that served me very well. I have a good memory, but it's also something that I harness, right? And make sure that I care about and learn about, right? So I'm going to this conference. I'm going to be walking the floors. I'm going to see Ken Beatty, who's the COO of one of the largest privately held oil and gas companies in Texas. He probably makes $5 or $6 million a year. He's being hit up by a lot of different salespeople, but he and I will see each other. We'll have an embrace. I'll ask him how his daughters are doing. I'll ask him if he's been back to Montana recently to see his family, since I know that's where he's from, and when his next fly fishing trip is. That will mean something to him. And then he's going to ask what I have to sell to him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. What do we say to Jeremy for coming in tonight from Colorado? The guy's on a plane tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Real quick, before he leaves and we wrap up tonight, Jeremy, we got 36, 37 eager students here. How do they get in touch with you if they want to keep in touch with you?
Yeah, easiest way is LinkedIn. I saw a couple of you guys added me already. If you guys want to write this down, my email is jeremy@funkfutures.com. That's JEREMY @funkfutures.com. My cell phone is 720-560-5813. Or you can find me on LinkedIn and just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm here for you. I'm happy to ask questions. Let me give you a quick story. Clayton Shepherdson was in this classroom about 2.5 years ago. He was an eager Bentley student there during COVID. He reached out. He asked me a lot of questions. He asked me if he could pitch a project that he was pitching. Now, I wasn't totally interested in the project, but I was interested in his passion. Fast forward, Clayton was here yesterday watching the AFC Championship game. Clayton's become a friend of mine. He's somebody who's done consulting for me. He interned for me, and he's somebody that I'll probably even have on my podcast. He's 23 years old, right? So I know you're going to listen to this, and for some of you, it's not going to be what you want to do. It's not the right fit, but I'm here. Like, I want to help. And if you show me that you can create value for me, I'll help you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for coming in tonight. Safe travels tomorrow. We'll
Thanks,
be in
guys.
touch. Appreciate you, buddy.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome questions, right? It's about what you guys can learn from the people that come in. What value can they add to you? Next week, we have Nick Richardson coming in from the Texas Rangers, okay? And we also have Jerry Acup, who is probably the sales guru in the United States, has written multiple books. Actually, he's featured in the chapter that you guys are going to read this week coming up. He's gonna come in and talk to you guys, much like Jeremy did tonight. So highlight a couple things for next week as we go forward thinking here. Read chapter 5 in the Manning book, and I believe read the 3 pillars, pages 63 through 97. Okay, short reading, again, just providing synopsis as far as what the Manning's reading taught you. It's all about communication. So next week in class, what we're gonna do is we're gonna become master storytellers. And we're gonna become master storytellers next week in this class. We're gonna do our elevator pitches. And also you guys are gonna have an opportunity to deconstruct 6 brands, 6 groups again, 6 brands, pre-call analysis on these brands. All right? Everybody good? Good. Everybody have fun tonight? Yeah. Awesome. See you later.